Okay, fabulous. Okay. Thank you for everyone for coming to our presentation. And I think our presentation today actually links in really well to a lot of the themes covered off by the two previous presenters. So we're going to talk to you today about access to career resources and the amelioration of disadvantage, looking at the Australian context and drawing on a large data sample. So I'm going to take you through the first couple of slides, and then I'll hand over to Shuyan and Lizzie Knight as well. So before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge the ancestors, elders and families of the Boonwurrung, Wadawurrung and Wurundjeri of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners and custodians of the land upon which we work and live, and we pay our deepest respects to their elders past, present and emerging. So just a little bit about where we work and where we are based in Melbourne. So we work at the Mitchell Institute for Education and Health Policy at Victoria University, and we are a research and policy think tank exploring issues around education and disadvantage across all sectors of education. So today I'm going to talk you through briefly the research aims, a bit of background literature, and I'll just go through a little bit of the methodology. Shen will go into a little bit more detail about the analysis that she conducted, and she'll talk you through the key findings, and Lizzie is going to contextualize all of our analysis towards the end. So we were interested in the impacts that career planning and resources can make to students' long-term outcomes. And we're looking at this quite broadly, backgrounded by the idea that career interventions have been linked to career satisfaction. Last year when we were presenting at this conference, we were looking at how different career interventions were linked to well-being, and now this presentation we're exploring a little bit more into the different types of career interventions and the resources that they access as teenagers and how that links to their later career satisfaction. And this work is important, we think, because we know that not all young people have the same experience of career development. And there's some recent research looking at similar data sets and showing that there are social inequalities depending on what types of schools students go to and their socioeconomic background of their families. It can shape not only the experience of career development and the resources that they can access, but they've got very different outcomes as well. So in terms of the data, I'll just talk you through the data before I pass over to Shen. So we're looking specifically at the 2009 cohort of from the longitudinal surveys of Australian youth. And it's a nationally representative survey. It tracks young Australians from the ages of 15 to 25. Unfortunately, it doesn't follow them until they're a little bit older, which would be great, but we look specifically at that 15 to 25 year range. And I will throw over to you, Shen.
Sorry, Shen, you just need to unmute yourself.
Okay. As Melissa mentioned, we use our national survey samples. I just added a little bit information. Initially, this sample are based on the international assessment samples we all know, which is a PISA. So the initial sample when they aged 15 was about 15,000 across Australia. As we all understand, in the longitudinal survey, you naturally have attrition of the samples. So the attrition rate is quite high. So by 11 years later, we might end up across Australia in the sample about 3,000 or 4,000 sample left. So there's a limitation in that. But on the other hand, we do have a really good national, representative sample that we can look at from the longitudinal point of view, multiple years, like 10 or 11 years later, for us to looking at the outcomes. So the methodology we used for this work, really, we use a lot of just descriptive statistics, and also some of the analysis also using linear regression method. They are quite a straightforward method, not as complex as the previous researchers that using more complex models. But I think the methodology fit the purpose for what we're trying to explore here. The first key finding here is that we find there's a inequality in access to career planning and support in secondary schools. So among the survey cohort at wave 2, basically when the cohorts were aged 16 years old, and most of them are in secondary school in year 10. As Lisa would know here, she's the career expert in Australian. And most of the schools start career, secondary schools in Australia start some form career planning activities at year 9 and year 10 up to year 11. So here at wave 2, about when they age 16, we ask in the survey, they ask these cohorts about the career planning activities that are happening in school, and also might be happening in the home environments. So basically, there's a couple questions asking, do you talk to your parents? Did you talk to your friends? Do you talk to someone on the job? And then also, do you do some self-initiated activities, for example, doing the career questionnaire, aptitude questionnaires, or you're using internet or or computer to find out information. And the third component is really about what institutional information or resources they have used. For example, do you go to career expos? Do you visit information sessions offered by universities or TAFE, which is the technology we call vocational training institute? We can see that's quite common. Most of the kids are say, yes, I talk to my family about it. I talk to my friends, and I also able to talk to someone on the job. And on these kind of activities, if you look at the table on the right-hand side, we break down the participation activities by the family SES measures. Basically, that's coming from the survey derived measure, measuring the family social, economic, and culture status of the family. And you can see that from quantile 1 to quantile 4, basically it's the ranking. Are you on the family on the bottom 25% as quantile 1, and also quantile 4 is for the top 25% of the ranking based on the family background. And interestingly, you can see there's a social patterns clearly here regarding the activities that are associated with the family resources. The kids or the students from high ICS families are more likely, to participate these family resource related activities. For example, talk to family and talk to friends and talk to someone on the job. And then, the students in the lower ICS families, they are less likely in comparison. So that's one interesting one. Another one is if you look at institutional resources, related the access to institutional resources. And there's one interesting observation is that the students who go into TAFE related information session are the opposite, having opposite the patterns, which means that low ICS students are more likely to go to these vocational training related institute information sessions, which is very common, because they knew they're not going to go to universities after post the school. They're more likely to looking at the vocational training post school, and they're more likely to do that. But the pattern's opposite for access to university information session, which is very intuitive, and we can see from that. The second analysis way, as Melissa mentioned, we want to looking at, if students have different kind of resources, or perhaps able to access different kind of career-related resources, is any link between the access to these career resources and the career outcomes. So the career outcome measures, you can measure the career outcome in many ways, but here we choose the career satisfaction as a measure, which is built in the survey questionnaire, and is a instrument developed in the survey. So basically, 11 years later, basically at wave 11, when most of the participants are age 25 years or older, and they were asking serious questions related to their satisfaction about the career aspects. So there's several questions here, a 4 aspect to say, what do you think about your future and your career perspective, and what about the work you do, and then also the money you get from your work each week. So the scale is between 10 to 0, 0 to 10. As you see, that the higher the score students gave or the participants gave means they're more satisfied about the career aspects. And we also need to be noted that they only those cohorts, the participants who had a job at age 25 would answer this kind of questions. So there will be some, 25 years old in the survey sample that won't answer this question because they haven't been employed. So as you understand, the sample might be a little bit smaller at this stage as well. So for the next one, we were linking to looking at the relationship between the career activities and the career satisfaction scores. Here in the with this table on the right-hand side, we're also looking at the mean scores, mean career satisfaction scores, based on the career planning activity they have been able to access 10 years or 11 years earlier. And we can see there's differences, in relation to the career planning activities. And the biggest difference is that those who talking to families about the career path 11 years early. So these people are more likely satisfied or having higher satisfaction scores compared to the participants say, I didn't talk to my families. And then the second one is talking to friends and students, their peers also have a quite significant effect. And then in the last column, we have a statistical significance testing. We can see those significant ones activities on the top 3 or 4. 5. Let me see. I can't see that bit. I have a look at this. Yep. So the significance one is talking to parents or families, and also the one talking to someone in the job. And also the last one is talk to career advisor teachers. It's also very important. That's related to, is associated with they having a higher career satisfaction score 11 years later. Although we can clearly say those career activities are clearly associated with the family resources, right? For some students, especially in the disadvantaged population groups, they might not have family. They can talk about the career planning, about the pathways, or post-school study and the career, future career or occupations. They might not have a peers. In the environment, they don't have a peer that they can talk about, or they probably don't know anybody that having a working in the job they aspire to. So this is clearly related to the inequality in terms of family resourcing. And the previous several studies has been done in Australia as well relating to this. They found that not only we see this inequality in terms of career resourcing from family background within students' family, also there's variations about the career planning activity that offered by different schools. So some schools in Australia, secondary schools, offer a lot more career, planning activities and opportunities. But the other students in different kind of schools, especially in the disadvantaged schools, they might not have equal opportunities to have these career planning, opportunities or participating in these career activities. So that's clearly showing a consistent information here. The second one, as I mentioned before, saying these are really related to the family resourcing and the family socioeconomic status. So this analysis, we did a further analysis using some simple linear regression model, using the career satisfaction score as outcome variable or dependent variable. And then we are taking these different career planning activity as explanatory variable, and as well as the SES variable as a control variable. So the K findings, when you're looking at the coefficients, here from the model, we can clearly see that even with control for the students' family SES measure, we still find some of the career planning activities is still having an independent effect on the career satisfaction. So one is talking to parents and the family. And the second one is also talking to someone in the job and talking to the career advisors or teachers in schools. So that's clearly highlighting, these three kind of career planning activity or interventions, that activity actually having independent effect on students' career satisfaction 11 years later. And then we also know, relating to previous the presentation, that making me think about saying, what's that mean? Does it mean that through doing this, participating these career activities, do students developing certain career competencies, right? And then providing easy pathways or better pathways for them to achieve the career or getting a job that they're really happy about and they're satisfied. So, there's a lot of things that happening in between. And so basically, maybe that's a proxy about the skills they developed through the career development opportunity, the career competency, maybe they developed, within the family, all this career development related to social skills, for example, cognitive skills that might be associated with the family SES as well. And there's a lot of things that we can further unpack later on. And also we know the career satisfaction score also very much related to the job they have. For example, are they in the part-time employment or they in the full-time employment? They all make differences. So we can further explore to these kinds of questions to contribute to that research. As I mentioned, we mentioned about, we often find that we don't have a clear measure about the career competency and skills. If we do have it in the survey sample, that would be interesting, avenue to further explore this question in the next steps. I will hand over to Lizzie to talk about the implications about our research and summarizing our K-funding and the implications.
Thank you, Shuyan, and thank you for such a detailed and really thorough explanation of our use of the LSA data. And I just think, we'd like to thank NCVR, who are the publishers of the LSA data, and it's just such a rich data set that we have in Australia that enables such sort of comprehensive analysis, and so we're really lucky, we feel. But I wanted to talk a bit summary. I'm a career practitioner interested in career development policy, and sort of say, well, what does this mean? What does this mean for what we should do in schools, in jurisdictions, in governments, and internationally? And I think that what we can draw from this study, firstly, is we can see that there, from the very careful statistical analysis that Chen undertook, we know that, as she said, career satisfaction scores 11 years after the first engagement do vary depending on some 4 types of resources. And we know that they were statistically significant based on access to their family, someone on the job, and we understand this as sort of perhaps work experience, perhaps part-time work, perhaps even, speakers in schools that I know we talk about. There's no necessarily specification about someone on the job, but someone who the respondents have valued hearing from. But we also, and I speak, not neutrally, but as a career development practitioner, that we can see that still that there is real value, really statistically significant value by engagement with a career practitioner, known in the study as a careers advisor and teacher. And we think this is important, and we use this satisfaction measure partly because we think it's really important. People's satisfaction with their career and how they feel affectively about their career is an important thing. And we also know from other studies and other research, it also impacts economic well-being and the economic resources of our country. Then we can draw further on that. So just to detail a little further, we think, and we also know from other research, that multiple engagements are important. It's important, particularly to when we're thinking about organising career programs in schools. It doesn't have to be intensive work in one thing, but multiple engagements, multiple opportunities to engage is critical. And we draw that also from some other work we've done in using this data set. We can see that, and as we all know from many other studies, parents and family are the most effective, and I'm doing air quotes for those of you who can't see, as a careers advisor, and we would perhaps in career practice talk about them as career conversations and how to support parents in those career conversations, and their impact on the career development of young people is really critical. And I am going to take this opportunity to plug my forthcoming book, Parenting, Educating and Care, coming out with Polgrove Macmillan later this year. Anyway, I will focus on this presentation now. But we think there is, talking to the career advisor and the teacher has some impact. And I think we should think about the career resources that are offered across programmatically a school setting and a jurisdictional setting, not just that individual engagement, thinking about the whole person and the whole experience of the young person. And that part-time work might be really useful. You're working in a supermarket and you talk to the logistics person, and that is just as valuable as other things could be. We should think about the depth of engagement and the range of different career development activities, and not just think about standard and particular occupations, which we know from other work from Anthony Mann and others, and that can be kind of restrained. We want to expose people for opportunity awareness, being aware as a young person about the range of roles involved to you, we know is critical, and being able to speak to somebody on the job can really have that effect. We do know and we note that the effect of socioeconomic status is still present, and Shuyan, you know, leads on some other effects and other reasons that there might be some effect of that. But we also know that there are different work, and Dockery, who we cited earlier, talks about and uses social mobility indices from the UK about who you know and who your family knows is another critical part of social capital, and impacts this. We like the data that the LSA provides. We would like more data. We would like more instances of asking about career, because it would make us happy, and provide us more information that we can then make good evidence-based recommendations. So just finally, to conclude, this is more kind of hopes for the future. I mean, having universal programmatic, and by that I mean not ad hoc, but programmatic offers of career development supports. And, you know, and we would, you know, look, we're talking from an Australian basis, but this is internationally applicable. But in Australia, we have the newly refreshed Australian Blueprint for Career Development, which has work on this, about what the sort of key items and competencies for career development will be, and that maybe also is useful for others to look at. And we think unbiased, high quality interventions, recognising the lack of neutrality sometimes delivered at scale, are really important. But we also think that support for parents and families to have high quality career interventions, and we know the OECD has highlighted things like Little Ripples, which has been a government funded organisation with little cute conversation cards and things to help people talk, you know, more neutrally about sort of different opportunities. So we're just really delighted to present this work. We're really looking forward to any questions you have. And again, thankful to my wonderful colleagues, Dr. Shuyan and Dr. Melissa Tham at Victoria University, the Mitchell Institute, and always to NCVR and the OECD for putting on this lovely conference.